So that's the difference between going from setting to rising. When it's above the horizon and it goes along, hits over your sin, it's gone from above social, cultural factors and where you believe in the world or what it believes what's good or bad, if it's bad or it's good. It's suddenly, it doesn't matter anymore because you're pulling into yourself as Neptune goes below the horizon. So it goes below the horizon, you're still projecting, but it's subjective now. It's not about other people. It's projecting what you believe in yourself. There's always a gullibility with it, with this projection. So Neptune, you eventually grow into it. Like I've been an astrologer consulting for 48 years now. I can smell Neptune. No, I sense it right away. I know immediately when someone's before they see me, I know they got a Neptune puzzle, so I prepare myself to walk into Neptune to try and make things simpler and more self-reliant. Depending on what situation they're in, then I find out the situation, I realize how they've gotten their life complicated or sad or whatever, and then try and find a way to navigate through this. Can't solve it, but to navigate through this till it gets clear again. So you can be scrambling, but it's hard to be substantial when Neptune's touching an angle. But the touching angle really is a shift from huge dimensions, from above functional beliefs to personal subjective beliefs, high and low, or disbeliefs. And then as it's going below, when it hits the IC, you're projecting your personal beliefs, projecting your purple beliefs, it hits the IC, and suddenly, are you living what you pray? Are you practicing what you preach? You're putting out beliefs, but it comes down to your IC, and it's no longer about projecting, it's how you're taking things in. But it's deep, so it's down around your personal judgment. You don't know who you are or whatever, and you're no longer projecting out, but you're taking things in, and you don't know what you take. Like, it's a puzzle of who am I? Really, probably one of the deepest, more mystical inner tests of faith when Neptune's on the IC. Okay, that on a mystical level, you could be really meditating deeply on a in the world. One of your kids could grow up and start seeing an alcoholic, or have a baby out of wedlock, or just being with someone another religion really is outside. But you have things that puzzle. What am I doing? Where am I going? The partner dies or gets sick, or and you're having to work with it. Like often it comes up in ways where you're having to help. It's not you're not directing yourself. You're having to adjust. Just I have to help you, or I can't live with myself, or I can't help you because it'll just drain me. Like we come to various conclusions, which is just our natal chart trying to reestablish itself inside the Neptune puzzle. It's like a big fog or a big fog is the best one. It's coming in, and it's going to be in there, and the fog will come in, get really thick where you can't do anything, and then it'll lift a little bit. You think you're coming in, you get ready to go again, and it comes back in again. It takes 2 or 3 times before that fog really lifts and starts to dissipate. And each time you think you're sure you know how to get through it. But if you're responsible for other people at that time, you can mislead other people too, as well as mislead yourself. So these are the puzzles of Neptune. Okay, in my chart, where's Neptune to the angles? Okay, in my chart, I have Neptune go over in the IC and over the descendant. So when over my IC, I was 23. I traveled around the world. I was an old hippie. I was a young hippie. I lived in Greenwich Village, Haight-Ashbury. I was reading poetry, going coffees, hitchhiking here and there, traveling. I went down to Mexico, lived in the mountains with the Indians. I was living a very evasive. I left home. I left university. I don't fit in anywhere. Really tune in, turn in, drop out. Like go. That was the theme at that time, and people were reacting. So I did that until I didn't belong anywhere, and I ended up going around the world. I don't belong here, don't belong there. Went to England, went across Europe, through Turkey, Iran, Afghanistan, through Pakistan, and into India. And in India, I ran into these people that ran these caves, these solitary caves, where you can go and be alone in solitude and never come up, and food would be put in, but you're alone in solitude for extended. Usually people would go in for 3 weeks or a month at a time, and it would be their pilgrimage for the year. They would go and be alone, and they'd just be chanting and being alone, and it was enhancing their spiritual thing. This was belief in India. And they would go in, and then you come out and you're renewed your whole life. And then some people, there are some people who do that every year and have done that for 70, 80 years. But there's some people just go in once and it changes enough. But it's the idea is knowing all of what you thought was real to find out what's sincere when you're alone. What are the thoughts that come into your mind when you're alone? This puzzle got to me, and when Neptune was on my IC, I had completed 2 years, Neptune going through my third house down to the IC, sitting in this cave, I call it black room, in a cave in India. It was a black room. You're all alone and isolated. It was really a room, it wasn't a cave. But it had toilet facilities and it had a tap to that where water would come in where you could wash yourself. So it had some facilities, so it wasn't like totally dirty. Like it was able to be kept very hygienic, but you're alone. So I'd spent 2 years there, and the first hit of Neptune, I was there all of 68, 69. Yeah, it wasn't until July 69 I came out of this room after spending 13 months in this room. It's a long story, but anyways, the day I stepped out of this room and I came out of my silence was the same day Neil Armstrong stepped on the moon. And it's just a funny little coincidence. My brother's name is Neil Armstrong, not the same one, but this was a Neptune point. How do you explain what are you going to? I'm in another culture. I'm away from home. I've talked to my mom, my family in years. They'd split up. I was on my own. And having experiences that mean nothing to anyone else, but were tremendously inwardly testing. Then at the end of that, I returned to Canada. The next hit, I said, well, I completed this. I can't stay in India. There were people wanting me to be in certain mystical positions and take positions within national living places. And I thought, no, I didn't. I felt and that's why I said I didn't feel I wanted the authority. So I ended up leaving and coming back to Canada, really to see mom and to come back to see family. Came back and they were in an alternative space. So that was like, it was half a shock, but it was very confusing when I came back. But I had to take a job for 6 months to pay off the airfare to get back. And then at the end of that, I couldn't stay there. And by May, I left the job and I started traveling on the West Coast. I hitchhiked across to Vancouver, down to California, and then in San Francisco, someone did an astrology chart for me in the summer in 1970. And I remember thinking to this day, you mean I'm supposed to be like this? And the astrology I realized my vision was astrological. So at that point, I got into astrology with all my beliefs deep down. I just totally got absorbed in it. I got married I came back to Toronto, and I came to Toronto, didn't stay in Montreal. I came back to Toronto, and I got married by the end of this on the IC, and I became the astrologer and started my web with Neptune. So it was a really mystical thing. I used to believe you get 2 astrologers in the room, how could you not solve the puzzles in the world? It would change everything. But really, there's all different kinds of reasons and ways people are into astrology. It's the language. But I had a lot of beliefs in it that it really made me a little fanatical and pumped, but also different. So that was my Neptune on my IC, very puzzling. So, okay, we add 40 some odd years to this, we come up to, it's my descendant. My descendant, 2013, I've had my 3 marriages, divorce. I've been living, well, by then I've been celibate and on my own for about 18 years. So I'm pretty much I wasn't looking so much for relationships, but Neptune hit the descendant. I had built up a website. I had this huge, great website. I'd worked on it for 10 years. It got hacked and I lost 2,500 web pages. I had this whole thing, it was all networked, all connected. But because the core program was changed, I couldn't back it up. I backed it up, but the backup couldn't be read by the new version. So I had to start rebuilding all my sites. I'm still doing this to this day. This is 4 years later. I'm still putting 10 or 15 different sites together that had pieces of this one site. So that was a huge loss and confusion. So how could someone hack a site? That would seem crazy. But at the same time, I was studying Lua Hebafa, which is a type of shadow boxing, like Tai Chi, only it's a slightly different type of movement. And I had visions of heliocentric charts and southern hemisphere charts, and I developed the charts, and I had a workshop. I had to talk about it. So then I was working with a programmer during this time, getting a lot of these things done. And I was trying to rebuild my website, my astrology program. And the programmer who'd worked with me for years, he just got burned out. He got old, he got burned out, and he'd worked with IBM when a bug was actually a bug in a room. The machine was a big machine in a room, and bugs were bugs. But he'd learned so many languages, he couldn't learn another language and make the adjustments. So he started to do it, and he had to let go. So that was a big letdown. I was relying on him to do it, and it never came outside to put that aside. But then I went and developed in Photoshop the heliocentric right ascension horoscopes, the colored horoscopes. On the second hit, I was just lost in this, and I did this working with the graphics and the visions at that point to be able to present astrology better. But by the time Neptune hit the descent the third time, one of my students from China came, and I went, and they paid for a China trip, so I went and did about 20 PowerPoint, 2-hour PowerPoint presentations in Shanghai and in Hangzhou, and I was really well received. I was like really elated. I was very Neptune. I was living in a dream, and everything was working perfect. Everyone was intelligent. The ship was there. I never expected to go. That was really great. So then I came back from September, and by January they called me wanting to come back again. So I went back again from March to May, and I went through a Chinese trip in which I did 4 different cities. I did about 50 different 2-hour PowerPoints, and I had some TV shows and stuff. And in China, I was studying Mandarin because I figured I might end up going there. I better start learning it. This was all the Neptune and descendant. And another friend of mine had run a spiritual group, and there was a political struggle in the group, and he got thrown out after he dedicated 20 years to it. I was really upset. And he had a stroke, almost died. And he was a great photographer and a musician. And after the stroke, his hand shakes, he couldn't play his music, and he couldn't take photography anymore. So he had a huge amount of photography, like 20 boxes of films, different things from India all the way to here. I took it and I put it all together. I scanned it all and I put it all together for him. It took me about 3 years to complete this so they weren't lost. So this was a dedication I did for someone else under the Neptune. They say, it's a long story. I don't mean to get caught up in this thing, but you have to embellish it to give justice to it. I had visions, I had ideas that were relating to other people. Some people were really reliable. Even with the Chinese trip, it went really great. And then the person who organized it had a breakdown, and we had a big fight, and we never talked to each other again and never went back again. So it was great and it was terrible at the same time. It was Neptune factors going on all through that. I won't get another hit to Neptune, but it's gone above my descendant now, and it's now going up towards the midheaven for the rest of my life. So you're not seeing, Saturn is your story of what you're going on. Neptune comes in and brings in these puzzles around this. But they're very dramatic. They're there. It doesn't take, you see 1 or 2 things, and then you see how spaced out you were, how lost, how confused, how fanatical, how dreamy, how gullible. And then you'll see all the different specifics of how you played around in it. But when you're living through it, for Neptune to become yours, to know how to deal with it, you have to see it just ahead of you and live through a difficult aspect for the 2.5 years while knowing all the things it can do and seeing, oh, this is based on that, and trying to go, and then trying to get down to simple. When it lifts, you finally understand astrologically, experientially, the nature of Neptune to that aspect. And anyone with that aspect, you'll be able to help them through it because you went through it consciously yourself. So you're going through it anyways. It's not always consciously with the astrology. So here we're recapturing our memory. We're re-looking at things, and we're seeing the points. But these angles, it gives you a bit of a toehold to see the rising, setting, the above, below, and the shifts around the quadrants. So you could take it further and go to the intuition, the feeling quadrants, the sensation, or social quadrants, and the thinking quadrants that go along this. But really, that's the basic factor, and it's enough to see it. So the vision going up to fame, how much you get or don't get. I believe I should have got it. I didn't. Like some people get fame, some people get scandal. When Neptune goes up to the midheaven, sometimes it comes down below, and you believe you should be somewhere, but you're not fitting in anywhere. So